Lucas Hartwell stepped onto the back terrace, rain hammering against imported stone. He needed that whiskey bottle he'd left in the greenhouse. Then he saw her, his maid, Sarah, crouched against the broken garden wall. Her hands were slick with blood, rain diluting the red into pink streams down her wrists. A plastic container sat beside her, 3-day-old pasta, green mold clearly visible even in the dim light. She was eating it, with her bare hands, shoving spoiled food into her mouth like a starving animal. Glass shards glittered around her feet. A bloodied cloth lay discarded in a puddle. Lightning cracked overhead. Sarah's head snapped up, their eyes met. Terror flooded her face. She scrambled backward, trying to hide the container behind her rain-soaked uniform. Lucas stood frozen, his $2,000 shoes soaking through. Why was his employee eating rotten leftovers in a thunderstorm with bleeding hands? Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now, let's continue with the story. Lucas strode forward, water soaking through his cashmere sweater. Stand up. Sarah struggled to her feet, clutching her bleeding hand against her chest. The container clattered to the ground, spilling gray noodles across the stones. That's from the dinner party. 3 days ago. His voice went cold. You're eating garbage. Mr. Hartwell, I can explain. Where did you get that cut? Sarah's mouth opened, but no words came. Her eyes darted toward the basement door. I asked you a question. An accident. You were what? Lucas stepped closer. The blood on her hands was too much. Too fresh. What did you break? Thunder rolled overhead. Then another sound, footsteps running across wet flagstone. Margaret Caldwell appeared, umbrella in hand, her face arranged in perfect concern. Mr. Hartwell, thank God you're here. What's going on? Margaret? The head housekeeper's voice trembled just right. It's the vase, sir. Your mother's vase. The one from the mantel. She glanced at Sarah. I'm so sorry. I tried to stop the bleeding, but she ran out here. The vase. Lucas felt something crack open inside his chest. My mother's vase. Sarah was dusting. The Qing dynasty piece. It just slipped. Margaret's hand flew to her mouth. I'm devastated, sir. Truly. Lucas's vision tunneled. The vase. The last thing his mother had touched before she died. The one item in this godforsaken house that still smelled like her perfume. His hand shot out. The slap connected with Sarah's wounded palm. Blood sprayed. She crumpled to her knees in the puddle, a strangled sound escaping her throat. Get out. His voice shook. You're fired. Pack your things and get out of my house. Sarah stayed on her knees, rain plastering her dark hair to her face. She didn't cry, didn't speak, just stared at her ruined hands. Margaret moved quickly, yanking Sarah upright with surprising strength. Come on, let's get you cleaned up. But she didn't head toward the servants' entrance. She steered Sarah toward the basement door, the one with the heavy lock. The one nobody used. Lucas turned back toward the house. His fists clenched so hard his nails drew blood. Behind him came a metallic clang, like something heavy hitting concrete. He spun around. Margaret's umbrella lay abandoned on the stones. Both women had vanished into the darkness below. Why the basement? Lucas stood in his study, whiskey glass trembling in his hand. The photograph of his mother stared back from the mahogany desk, Victoria Hartwell, 3 months before the heart attack. Before everything went dark. The vase had been her wedding gift. From her grandmother. The only piece of the past she'd carried into this cold house. Now it was dust. He reached for his phone to call the insurance company, then stopped. His hand was still shaking. Not from anger anymore. From something else. 20 feet below. In the basement, Sarah sat on the concrete floor, her back against the damp stone wall. The single bulb overhead flickered. No windows. The door had clicked shut with a finality that made her stomach turn. Margaret's voice still echoed. "Stay quiet, if you know what's good for that little girl upstairs." Sarah examined her hand in the weak light. The cut was deeper than she'd thought. It needed stitches. She tore a strip from her already ruined uniform and wound it around her palm, biting back a cry as she pulled it tight. In her pocket, folded into a tiny square, was the prescription. Emma's medication, $847 for 1 month's supply. Her monthly take-home after debt deductions, $200. She'd been $3 short at the pharmacy yesterday. $3. The pharmacist had looked at her with pity that burned worse than acid. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We can't release it without full payment." Emma had been coughing all night. That wet, rattling cough that made Sarah's blood run cold. Sarah pulled her knees to her chest and finally let herself cry silent, shaking sobs that no one would hear. In the greenhouse, Henry Morrison wiped rain from his tablet. At 68, his hands weren't as steady as they used to be, but they were steady enough for this. The security camera footage loaded slowly. He'd installed the cameras himself 6 months ago to monitor the aphid problem on Mrs. Hartwell's, the late Mrs. Hartwell's prize roses. The angle caught the corner of the drawing room through the French doors. He hadn't meant to capture anything else. But there it was. Timestamp 5:47 p.m. Margaret Caldwell entered the frame, looking left, then right, alone. She walked to the mantel where the vase sat bathed in afternoon light. Henry leaned closer to the screen. Margaret pulled her sleeve over her hand, positioned herself carefully. Then, with a slight push of her elbow, she knocked the vase from its pedestal. It shattered in slow motion. Margaret stood there, staring at the pieces. Then she smiled. She pulled out her phone, made a call. 10 minutes later, Sarah appeared, confusion written across her young face. The audio was faint, but Henry could read Margaret's lips. "Look what you've done." Sarah shook her head frantically, pointing to herself, mouthing no. Margaret grabbed Sarah's arm, shoved her toward the glass. Sarah stumbled, her hand coming down on a large shard. Blood bloomed immediately. Henry watched Margaret's mouth move again. "If you tell him the truth, I'll make sure that sick little girl of yours never sees a hospital bed. Do you understand me?" Sarah had nodded, clutching her bleeding hand. Henry ejected the USB drive and slipped it into his jacket pocket. His heart hammered against his ribs. 3 housemaids before Sarah. All gone within 6 months. One had quit with bruises she wouldn't explain. Another left in the middle of the night. The third, sweet Jenny from Providence, had taken pills. They'd called it an accident. Henry had suspected Margaret for years. The woman ruled the household staff like a tyrant, but she was careful. Always careful. Not this time. He headed toward the main house, rain plastering his gray hair to his skull. Upstairs. In the cramped servants' quarters, Emma Bennett woke to the sound of her own coughing. The room spun. Her chest felt like someone was sitting on it. "Mommy." Her voice came out as a whisper. The narrow bed beside hers was empty. Mommy always slept there, one hand reaching across to make sure Emma was still breathing. Emma sat up, her 5-year-old body shaking. The room was so cold. Where were the extra blankets? Mommy always got extra blankets when Emma was sick. Mommy. She slid off the bed, her bare feet hitting the cold floor. The hallway outside was dark. She gripped the railing and made her way down the servants' stairs. Each step an effort. A woman in a gray dress, Mrs. Patterson, emerged from the linen closet. "Where's my mommy?" Mrs. Patterson's face crumpled with something like pity. "I don't know, sweetheart. I haven't seen her. I need my mommy." Emma's breath came in short gasps. I can't breathe good." Mrs. Patterson knelt down, pressing her hand to Emma's forehead. "Oh, honey, you're burning up." Emma pulled away and ran. Down the stairs, through the servants' hall, into the grand foyer where the ceiling went up and up forever. That's where Henry found her, standing in the center of the marble floor in her thin nightgown, sobbing. "Emma." Henry hurried over, the USB drive heavy in his pocket. "What's wrong, child?" "I can't find Mommy. She's gone. She's gone and I'm sick and..." "Shh, it's all right. We'll find her." Henry picked up the little girl. She weighed almost nothing. Emma buried her face in his shoulder. Then, through her tears, the bad lady took her. What bad lady? The one with the mean face, Mrs. Caldwell? She said Mommy had to go downstairs to the dark place. Emma pointed a shaking finger toward the far wall. "That door, the one that's always locked." "The basement door." Henry's blood went cold. At that moment, Lucas emerged from his study. He stopped, staring at the crying child in the gardener's arms. "What's going on?" Emma twisted in Henry's grip, her fevered eyes wild. "Where's my mommy? Where's Mommy?" "I think she's..." Henry began. A sound erupted from below. Loud, violent, like something or someone throwing themselves against a metal door. All three of them froze, staring at the basement entrance. Emma screamed, "Mommy's down there." The bad lady locked Mommy in the dark. Lucas felt the floor tilt beneath him. Why would Margaret lock Sarah in the basement? Lucas strode to the basement door and yanked the handle. Locked. "Where's the key?" Henry shook his head, still holding Emma. "Margaret has the only one. There's a spare in the safe." Lucas spun on his heel, Emma's cries echoing behind him. 2 minutes later, he was back, brass key in hand. The lock turned with a grinding protest. Cold air rushed up from below. Lucas descended the concrete steps, fumbling for the light switch. The bulb flickered on. Sarah sat hunched in the corner, her makeshift bandage soaked through with blood. Her head snapped up at the sound of footsteps, eyes wide with an animal fear that made Lucas's stomach turn. "Emma." Sarah tried to stand, swayed, caught herself against the wall. She's upstairs with Henry. Lucas took in the room properly now, the rust-stained floor, the scratch marks on the walls, the cold seeping from the stones. How long has this room been used like this? Sarah didn't answer, just stared at him like he might strike her again. "Come on." He held out his hand. She didn't take it. Emma's voice filtered down from above. "Mommy, Mommy, that broke her." Sarah stumbled toward the stairs, past Lucas without looking at him. He followed her up into the light, Emma tore free from Henry and launched herself at Sarah, who dropped to her knees to catch her daughter. The impact made her wounded hand slam against the floor. She bit down on a scream. "Baby, baby, I'm here now." Emma was burning up. Lucas could see it from 5 feet away, the flush in her cheeks, the glassy eyes, the way she shook despite Sarah's arms around her. "Henry, call Dr. Warner. Tell her it's urgent." Lucas pulled out his phone. "I'll get an ambulance." "No." Sarah's voice cracked. "No ambulances. Please. We can't afford." "I'll pay for it." Sarah looked up at him, confusion and distrust warring on her face. "Just let me help." Lucas turned back to his phone, but Henry touched his arm. "Sir, before the doctor comes, you need to see something." Henry pulled the USB drive from his pocket. 10 minutes later, Lucas sat at his desk. The video paused on his laptop screen. Margaret's face frozen in that terrible smile. He'd watched it 3 times. Each viewing made him feel sicker. She pushed it deliberately. His voice sounded hollow. "Yes, sir." And threatened Sarah's daughter. "Yes, sir." Lucas looked at his hands, the same hands that had struck Sarah's bleeding palm. "God, what have I done?" Dr. Elizabeth Warner arrived 20 minutes later, her medical bag in hand. She'd been the Hartwell family physician for 2 decades. She'd held Lucas when he was born, sewn up his split chin when he was 8, sat with him the night his mother died. She took one look at Sarah's hand, and her professional mask slipped. "This needs proper stitches." "How long ago did this happen?" 6 hours, Sarah whispered. 6. Dr. Warner's eyes snapped to Lucas. "She's been bleeding for 6 hours. It's complicated. It's negligent." The doctor began cleaning the wound. Sarah flinched, but didn't cry out. "This will scar, possibly nerve damage." She glanced at Emma, coughing in Sarah's lap. "And this little one? Fever, respiratory infection, I think." Dr. Warner examined Emma with gentle efficiency. "When was her last checkup?" Sarah's silence spoke volumes. "Right." The doctor's jaw tightened. "I'll handle both of them. Lucas, I need to speak with you. Outside. In the hallway." Dr. Warner shut the door and rounded on him. "That girl has multiple old scars on her hands, defensive wounds, cuts that healed poorly because she couldn't afford proper treatment." Her voice shook with controlled fury. "How long has this been happening under your roof?" "I didn't know." "You didn't look?" She jabbed a finger at his chest. "That child in there needs specialized cardiac care. Sarah's been managing a heart condition on minimum wage and prayer. Do you have any idea what that's like?" Lucas felt the walls closing in. "I'll fix this. Whatever it costs. Money isn't magic. Lucas, it doesn't undo trauma." Back in the drawing room, Henry handed Lucas the USB drive. "What will you do with it?" Lucas looked through the doorway at Sarah, who sat perfectly still while Dr. Warner stitched her palm. Emma had fallen asleep against her mother's chest. Sarah didn't move, didn't breathe, as if afraid any motion would shatter this fragile piece. "I'm going to fire Margaret. Tonight. And I'm calling the police." "There's more, sir." Henry's voice dropped. "On the footage. After Margaret breaks the vase, she makes a phone call. I had the IT department trace it." He handed Lucas a printout. "The number belongs to a Derek Sullivan, Pennsylvania area code." Who's Derek Sullivan? That's what worries me. Lucas walked to Sarah, knelt down so he was eye level with her. She still wouldn't look at him. Sarah, I was wrong about everything. I'm sorry doesn't begin to cover it, but I am deeply sorry. Her eyes finally met his. They were hollow. You won't be fired. You'll get proper pay, $4,000 a month, full benefits, and Emma's medical bills, all of them. I'll handle them. He paused. If you want to stay, why? Her voice was barely audible. Why now? Because I saw the video. Margaret set you up, and because... He gestured helplessly. Because I should have listened. I should have been better. I'm trying to be better. A tear slid down Sarah's cheek. Just one. Thank you. Emma stirred, coughed weakly. Sarah tightened her arms around her daughter. Dr. Warner finished the last stitch. There. You'll need to keep it dry and... The doorbell rang. Henry went to answer it. Through the open drawing room door, they heard voices in the foyer. Margaret's voice, sharp and cold, and another voice deeper. Male, with an edge like broken glass. Henry appeared in the doorway, his face gray. Sir, Margaret is here. She's brought someone. Lucas stood. Tell her she's fired and to get out before I have her arrested. Sir, he says he's here for the child. Everyone froze. A man stepped into view behind Henry, 6'2", heavily built, with a face marked by old violence. His eyes locked on Emma. That's my daughter, he said, and I'm taking her home. Sarah made a sound like a wounded animal. She clutched Emma so hard the little girl woke with a whimper. The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Hello, Sarah. Been a while. Emma saw him and began to scream. Derek Sullivan walked into the drawing room like he owned it. Margaret trailing behind him with an expression that might have been satisfaction. Get away from her. Sarah's voice shook, but she stood, Emma clinging to her neck. You have no right to be here. No right. Derek pulled a folded document from his jacket. Court says different. That's my kid. Lucas stepped between them. I don't know who you are, but you need to leave. Now. Derek Sullivan. The man extended a hand Lucas didn't take. I'm here to collect my daughter, Emma Sullivan. Bennett. Sarah hissed. Her name is Emma Bennett. For now. Derek's smile was all teeth. But see, I did some digging. Found out you've been playing house with my dead wife's kid, pretending she's yours. That's fraud. Sarah, identity fraud. Custodial interference. Emma sobbed into Sarah's shoulder, her small hands fisting in her mother's, her aunt's blood-stained uniform. Lucas looked at Sarah. What is he talking about? Sarah's face crumpled. Emma was my sister Rachel's daughter. Rachel died 3 years ago. I've been raising Emma since she was 2. Rachel fell down the stairs. Derek's voice was flat. Tragic accident. You pushed her. Sarah's scream made Emma cry harder. You beat her for years and then you killed her. That was never proven. Derek turned to Lucas. Your employee has been harboring my child illegally. I have every right to take what's mine. Margaret finally spoke, her voice syrupy with false concern. I contacted Mr. Sullivan 2 weeks ago when I discovered the truth. A child belongs with her father, not with... She glanced at Sarah with barely concealed contempt. An impoverished single woman living in a 10-square-meter room. You. Sarah's voice broke. You did this. You knew what he was, and I knew you were hiding something, Margaret said coldly. All those fake documents, the lies. I did what was right. Henry stepped forward, his tablet in hand. Derek Sullivan, wanted in Pennsylvania for aggravated assault in violation of a protection order. There's an active warrant. Derek's jaw tightened. That's old news. Drop charges. The warrant's still active. Henry turned the screen toward Lucas. Dated 6 months ago. And there's more. Rachel Sullivan's death was ruled accidental. But the investigation was never closed. Evidence of prior domestic violence. 12 emergency calls from the home. 3 hospitalizations. Get out. Lucas's voice cut like ice. Or I call the police right now. Derek didn't move. You call them, they'll see Sarah's been committing fraud. She'll lose the kid anyway. To me or to the state. Your choice. The room fell silent except for Emma's sobbing. Margaret crossed her arms. I've already consulted with family services. Given the circumstances, Sarah's financial instability, her lies about Emma's parentage, the child would be better placed with blood relatives. How much did he pay you? Lucas turned on Margaret. How much to betray a woman you've been terrorizing for months? I don't know what you... I have the video, Margaret, of you breaking the vase, of you threatening Sarah, of you locking her in the basement. Lucas pulled out his phone. Should I play it for Mr. Sullivan here, show him the kind of person he's partnered with? Margaret's face went white. Derek shrugged. Don't care what she did to some maid. I want my kid. She's not your kid. Sarah's voice steadied, hardened. You never wanted her. You beat Rachel when she was pregnant. You told her to get rid of the baby. Rachel ran away when Emma was 6 months old. She hid for a year and a half before you found us. Then you killed her. Prove it. Derek's smile was poison. I can't. Sarah's shoulders sagged. Rachel was too scared to press charges. The police said the fall was consistent with an accident. No witnesses. She looked at Emma, smoothing the little girl's fevered hair. But I know what you are, and I will die before I let you touch her. Dr. Warner spoke up, her voice clinical and cold. Emma Bennett has a congenital heart condition requiring ongoing specialized care. Treatment costs exceed $250,000 annually. Mr. Sullivan, do you have insurance that covers pediatric cardiac specialists? Derek's confidence flickered. I'll figure it out. She has appointments with 3 different specialists next month. Do you know which ones? I said I'll figure it out. She's on 4 medications that must be administered at precise intervals. Her condition is life-threatening if not properly managed. Are you prepared to? I'm her father. Derek's veneer cracked. I have rights. You have nothing. Lucas stepped closer. You're wanted in Pennsylvania. The moment you walk out that door, I'm calling every law enforcement agency I can reach. And if you somehow get custody, I guarantee you won't have the resources to keep that little girl alive. You threatening me? I'm telling you facts. Margaret interjected, her voice sharp. Mr. Hartwell, you may have wealth, but you don't understand how family law works. Blood trumps everything. Derek has a stronger claim than Sarah does. Actually, Henry said quietly, that might not be true. Everyone turned to look at him. Henry pulled a photograph from his jacket, old, edges worn, I found this in the library archives while looking for the security footage. It fell out of Mrs. Victoria Hartwell's old diary. He handed it to Lucas. The photo showed Victoria Hartwell, maybe 20 years old, holding a little girl with dark curls and huge eyes. On the back, in faded ink, Sarah, 1998. Lucas stared at it. My mother never mentioned anyone named Sarah. Look at the child's face, sir. Lucas looked, then looked at Sarah, standing across the room with Emma in her arms. The resemblance was uncanny. Same eyes, same bone structure. That's... Lucas's mouth went dry. That can't be. Sarah stepped closer, squinting at the photo. Her face went gray. That's me. I'm 3 years old in that picture. My mother, Catherine, she had this same photo. She said it was taken at a hospital charity event. Her voice wavered. She said a kind lady held me while she filled out paperwork. Your mother's name was Catherine? Lucas asked. Catherine Bennett. She died when I was 12. Cancer. Sarah's breathing quickened. She always said. She said our family used to know the Hartwells before I was born, but she never explained how. Margaret laughed, sharp and bitter. Oh, this is perfect. You really don't know, do you? Know what? Lucas demanded. Margaret's eyes glittered with malice. I've known for months, since I hired her. I wanted to see how long it would take. She turned to Sarah. Tell them, dear. Tell them who your mother really was. Or should I? I don't understand. Catherine Hartwell. Margaret said softly. Before she married James Bennett and took his name. Victoria Hartwell's illegitimate half-sister. Born from an affair. Disowned by the family. Left to rot in poverty while this house sat full of gold. The room spun. No. Sarah shook her head. That's not my mother never said. Because she was ashamed. Margaret's voice dripped venom. I knew Maxwell Hartwell, Lucas's father, very well, very intimately. In fact, her smile was razor sharp. I was his lover for 15 years. He told me everything, including about the bastard half-sister his wife refused to help. Catherine begged Victoria for help when she got sick. Victoria said no. Let her die. Lucas felt like he'd been punched. That's not true. My mother would never... Your mother was a coward and a liar. Margaret spat. And so was Maxwell. He promised to marry me after Victoria died. Instead, he left everything to you. Nothing for me. After 15 years, she laughed bitterly. So yes, when I saw Sarah Bennett's application, when I traced her mother's maiden name, I knew exactly who she was. And I wanted her to suffer in this house the way I suffered. The way her mother suffered. Sarah swayed, clutching Emma. My mother knew Mrs. Hartwell. More than knew. Margaret's voice was cruel. They were sisters, which makes you... She gestured between Lucas and Sarah. What? Exactly cousins, something closer. Lucas's phone buzzed. He almost didn't answer. But the caller ID showed Richard Pemberton, the family attorney. At 11 at night. He answered. Richard, this isn't a good... Lucas. The lawyer's voice was shaking. I'm at the office. I found something in the old safe deposit box. A second will. Victoria's handwriting. Dated 3 days before she died. A pause. Lucas, there's something in here about a daughter. A daughter Victoria gave up before she married your father. Lucas's vision tunneled. Her name was Sarah Catherine born 1997. Richard's voice cracked. Lucas, if this is real, Sarah Bennett isn't your cousin. She's your half-sister. The phone slipped from Lucas's hand. He looked at Sarah, at this young woman he'd slapped, fired, watched bleed on his floor, this woman eating moldy food in the rain. His sister. Sarah stared back, Emma still in her arms, her stitched hand trembling. What did he say? She whispered. Richard Pemberton arrived at 12:30 in the morning. A metal document box clutched under his arm like it contained something alive and dangerous. Derek Sullivan and Margaret had been escorted out by security 20 minutes earlier. Derek shouting threats. Margaret silent and venomous. The police had been called. Warrants were being verified. But none of that mattered now. Lucas sat across from Sarah in the drawing room. Between them, the document box sat unopened on the coffee table. Emma slept fitfully on the sofa. Her breathing labored. Dr. Warner had given her medication to bring down the fever, but her face remained flushed. I need to explain some history first, Richard said, his hands shaking as he unlocked the box. Your father, Maxwell Hartwell, was not a good man. Lucas, I know you knew that. But there were things even you didn't know. He pulled out a slim folder, yellowed with age. Victoria Hartwell came from old money. When she was 19, she fell in love with a man named James Bennett. He worked in her father's gardens. Richard glanced at Sarah. James was your biological father. Sarah's breath hitched. Victoria got pregnant. Her parents gave her an ultimatum: give up the baby and marry someone appropriate, or be disowned completely. She chose the money. Richard's voice cracked. She gave birth in secret, signed papers giving James full custody. 3 weeks later, she married Maxwell Hartwell and had me, Lucas said hollowly. A year later. Yes, but she never stopped thinking about the daughter she gave away. Richard opened the folder. Inside were letters, dozens of them, in Victoria's handwriting, all addressed to Sarah Catherine Bennett. None of them ever sent. Sarah reached for one with her bandaged hand, then pulled back as if burned. She wrote to you for years. Richard continued, every birthday, every Christmas, telling you about her life, about her regrets. He paused. About her other child, her son, Lucas. Lucas felt something break open inside his chest. She knew where Sarah was this whole time. James married a woman named Catherine Morrison when Sarah was a baby. Catherine agreed to raise Sarah as her own. They changed the birth certificate. Legally, Catherine became Sarah's mother. Richard pulled out another document. Victoria sent money occasionally, anonymously, but not enough. Never enough. James died when Sarah was 7. Catherine struggled. Victoria knew this, but Maxwell. He stopped, choosing words carefully. Maxwell found out about Sarah when Lucas was 10. He threatened Victoria. If she ever contacted the girl, if she ever acknowledged her publicly, he would divorce her and ensure she got nothing, not even custody of Lucas. The room was suffocating. So she wrote letters she never sent, Sarah said, her voice breaking, and let my mother let Catherine die of cancer because she couldn't afford treatment. I'm so sorry. Sarah stood abruptly, still holding Emma. She chose money. Twice. Once when she gave me away, and again when she could have saved the only mother I ever knew. Tears streamed down her face. I don't want to hear any more. There's more you need to know. No. Sarah's voice shattered. I don't care about her regrets or her letters or her guilt. She had wealth and power, and she chose herself. Both times. Lucas couldn't speak, couldn't move. He was thinking of every interaction with Sarah, every cold word, the slap, watching her bleed, calling her careless, worthless, his sister, his mother's daughter, the child Victoria had cried about in the middle of the night when she thought Lucas couldn't hear. The will, Richard said quietly. Victoria wrote it 3 days before she died. She knew her heart was failing. She'd hidden it from Maxwell. But she knew. He pulled out the document. She left 40% of her personal estate to Sarah Catherine Bennett. Instructions to locate her, to provide for her, to tell her the truth. 40%. Lucas's voice was barely audible. Approximately $180 million, plus a letter. Richard held out an envelope, aged and sealed. For Sarah. Sarah didn't take it. I don't want her money. It's not about wanting it. It's about what's right. It's yours. Nothing about this is right. Sarah's cry woke Emma, who began coughing deep, wet sounds that rattled in her small chest. My mother died because Victoria Hartwell was too much of a coward to help her own sister. I grew up poor, watching Catherine work herself to death. And all the while, this woman lived in a mansion and wrote letters she never sent. She rocked Emma, trying to soothe her. Money doesn't fix that. It doesn't bring anyone back. Lucas stood slowly. I struck you. I called you garbage. I threw you out of my house. His voice cracked. And you're my sister. The only family I have left. I'm not your family. Sarah's eyes were hollow. I'm just someone who shares your blood. That doesn't make us anything. Emma's coughing worsened. She couldn't catch her breath. Her lips were tinged blue. Dr. Warner rushed over. She's going into respiratory distress. We need to get her to a hospital. Now! I'll call an ambulance, Lucas began. No time. And none. Warner looked at Sarah. I need to be honest. With your medical debt, no local hospital will admit her for emergency surgery. She needs a cardiac surgical center. Yale New Haven is the closest that can handle her case, but their policy for patients with outstanding debt. She trailed off. Sarah's face was white. How much? They'll require a deposit before surgery, given the complexity. Dr. Warner paused. At least $25,000. I have $47 in my bank account. I'll pay it, Lucas said immediately. Whatever it costs. Richard cleared his throat. Lucas, I need to tell you something. There's been a freeze placed on the estate accounts. Someone filed an injunction this afternoon claiming you're distributing assets improperly. Until it's resolved. How long? Could be weeks. The board of directors is contesting your authority to make unilateral decisions about the inheritance. Lucas felt the ground disappear beneath him. So I can't access any of it, nothing. Your personal accounts are separate, but... Richard grimaced. Those funds are tied up in investments. Liquidation would take days at minimum. Emma gasped, her small body convulsing as she fought for air. We don't have days, Dr. Warner said. We have hours, then maybe less. Sarah sank to the floor, still holding Emma. No, Please. Not my baby. Please. She looked up at Lucas, at Richard, at the room full of wealth and power. Someone help her, please. I'll do anything. But there was nothing. No magic solution, no emergency vault of cash. Henry Morrison stepped forward from where he'd been standing silently by the door. In his weathered hands, he held a small leather bank book. I have $28,000, he said quietly. Saved over 40 years of working here. It's yours. For Emma. Everyone stared at him. Henry. I can't, Lucas began. You can, and you will. Henry placed the bank book on the table. Mrs. Hartwell Victoria, she saved my life once. Years ago. I was going to lose my house. My wife was sick. Victoria paid the medical bills, anonymously. I didn't know it was her until after she died, and her accountant told me. His eyes glistened. She wasn't all bad. She made terrible choices, but she had goodness in her. Let me pass that goodness on. Lucas picked up the bank book with shaking hands. I'll pay you back, every cent, with interest. Don't care about that. Just save the child. Dr. Warner was already on the phone, arranging transport. Medical helicopter, 20 minutes. Sarah clutched Emma, who was barely conscious now. Stay with me, baby. Stay with Mommy. Please stay. Lucas knelt beside them. She's going to make it. I promise. You can't promise that. Sarah looked at him with devastated eyes. Money can't buy miracles. It can't undo the past. It can't make mothers come back or repair broken hearts. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Can it bring my daughter back if she dies tonight? Lucas had no answer. Richard placed the sealed letter from Victoria on Sarah's lap. She wanted you to read this. When you were ready. Sarah didn't touch it. The helicopter arrived 19 minutes later, landing on the front lawn. Its searchlight flooded through the windows, throwing harsh shadows across the drawing room. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. Emma was placed on it. Oxygen mask over her tiny face. Sarah climbed in beside her daughter. Lucas moved to follow. Family only. One paramedic said. She is family. Sarah said quietly. Then, meeting Lucas's eyes, he's Emma's uncle. Let him come. The flight was 23 minutes of pure hell. Emma's vital signs kept dropping. The medical team worked frantically. Sarah held Emma's hand, whispering prayers or promises Lucas couldn't tell which. They landed on the hospital roof at 2:47 a.m. Emma was rushed into surgery prep. A nurse stopped Sarah at the door. Ma'am, I need you to sign consent forms. And there's the matter of the deposit. Lucas thrust Henry's bankbook at her. 28,000. That enough? The nurse looked at the amount. It's, yes, for now. She glanced at her clipboard. But ma'am, you should know. Your daughter's condition is more advanced than we thought. The surgery is high risk. Dr. Chen is the best we have. But... She looked between Sarah and Lucas. The survival rate for this operation is 60%. You should prepare yourselves. Sarah made a sound like she'd been shot. Lucas caught her before she collapsed. The nurse continued, relentless. If she survives the surgery, there's still recovery. Potential complications, more surgeries down the line. The total cost could exceed $250,000. I don't care about the cost, Lucas said. Easy to say when you have money. Sarah pulled away from him, steadied herself against the wall. Her stitched hand left a small smear of blood on the white paint. But what about everyone else? All the Emmas whose uncles aren't millionaires. What happens to them? She turned to him, eyes blazing through tears. Your mother had money. She could have saved mine. Saved me. Instead, she wrote letters and sat in her mansion feeling guilty. Sarah's voice broke. And now Emma might die anyway. And all your wealth can only buy us a 60% chance. 60%. What kind of justice is that? Lucas had no answer. A surgeon emerged, Dr. Michael Chen, still in his street clothes, called in for the emergency. We need to operate now, right now. Her heart is failing. If we wait another hour, we'll lose her. Do it, Sarah whispered. Dr. Chen looked at Lucas. Are you the father? Uncle. Close enough, both of you. There's a surgical waiting room on the 3rd floor. Someone will update you every hour. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, Emma's a fighter. I've seen worse odds. Then he was gone, and Emma was gone. And Sarah and Lucas were left standing in a fluorescent hallway that smelled of antiseptic and desperation. Sarah slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold tile floor. Lucas sat beside her. If she dies, Sarah said, her voice empty, every penny of that inheritance can go to hell. It won't mean anything. None of it will mean anything. The clock on the wall read 3:00 a.m. Surgery would take 4 to 6 hours. Lucas pulled out his phone. A text from Richard. The bank verified the freeze. Someone powerful is behind it. Investigating. Another text, this one from an unknown number. This is Jonathan Pierce, Thomas Sullivan's attorney. Mr. Sullivan is Derek's brother. He's filing for custody of Emma. Hearing scheduled for next week. Call me. Lucas stared at the message. Even if Emma survived surgery, they weren't done fighting. He showed the text to Sarah. She read it and started laughing, a broken, hysterical sound that turned into sobs. I can't. She gasped. I can't do this anymore. I can't lose her. She's all I have. Rachel is dead. Catherine is dead. Victoria never wanted me. I have nothing except Emma. Nothing. Lucas put his arm around her shoulders. This time, she didn't pull away. They sat on the cold hospital floor as the clock ticked toward dawn, waiting to learn if love and money and 4 hours of surgery would be enough to save one small life. At 3:30 in the morning, Lucas stood and walked to the vending machine down the hall. He returned with 2 coffees and a package of stale cookies. Here. He held out a cup to Sarah. She stared at it like it might bite her. It's terrible coffee, Lucas said, but it's hot. She took it. Their fingers didn't touch. They sat in silence for a while. The only sounds the hum of fluorescent lights and distant hospital machinery. She'll make it, Lucas said. Emma's strong. You don't know that. No, but I'm choosing to believe it anyway. Sarah took a sip of coffee, grimaced. This really is terrible. Told you. Another silence. Then Sarah spoke, her voice barely audible. Catherine, my mom, she died in a hospital like this. I was 12. They moved her to the hospice wing when there was nothing left to do. She stared at the coffee cup. I sat with her for 3 days. She kept apologizing for not being able to pay for treatment, for leaving me alone, as if any of it was her fault. Lucas felt something crack inside his chest. I'm sorry. She was the best person I ever knew. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, made sure I always had food, even when she went hungry. When she got sick, she hid it for months because she didn't want to worry me. Sarah's hands trembled. By the time I found out, it was stage 4. The doctor said if she'd caught it earlier, if she'd had proper insurance. But she didn't. So she died. Victoria should have helped her. Yes. She should have. Sarah finally looked at him. But you're not Victoria, and I'm not Catherine. We're just 2 people who got dealt a bad hand by the people who were supposed to love us. Lucas set down his coffee. When my mother died, I was 27. Heart attack. Sudden. I was in Tokyo on business. By the time I got home, she was already gone. His voice caught. The last conversation we had was an argument. About the company. About money. Always about money. I never told her I loved her. Never asked about her life before she married my father. Never wondered why she cried sometimes when she thought no one was watching. She was thinking about me, Sarah said softly. I think so. Yes. They sat with that truth between them. At 4:15, Dr. Chen emerged from the surgical wing, still in his scrubs. Both Sarah and Lucas jumped to their feet. The surgery is progressing well, he said quickly. Emma's stable. But there was a complication, more scar tissue around the valve than we expected. We're working through it. Another 2 hours, maybe 3. But she's okay. Sarah's voice broke. She's fighting. Just like I said she would, after he left. Sarah sank back to the floor. This time from relief rather than despair. Lucas pulled out his phone. I'm going to find out who froze the accounts. Does it matter right now? Yes. Because whoever did it is trying to keep me from helping you. From helping Emma. And I'm done letting powerful people hurt my family. My family. The words hung in the air. Sarah looked up at him. For the first time, something other than fear or anger crossed her face. Something like hope. Lucas made 5 phone calls, woke up his entire legal team. By 5 a.m., he had his answer. David Crane, he told Sarah. My father's old protege. Vice president of the board. He filed the injunction, claiming I was mismanaging assets by planning to give you the inheritance. Said it would destabilize the company. Maybe he's right. He's not. Lucas's voice hardened. He's scared. Scared that if you take your rightful place, he loses control. Well, he's about to lose a lot more than that. He opened his laptop and started typing. What are you doing? Sarah asked. Something I should have done years ago. Being honest? He crafted a post for social media, his verified account with 500,000 followers. He wrote about Victoria, about the hidden will, about Sarah, about his own blindness and privilege, about Margaret's cruelty and his complicity. He wrote about Emma, fighting for her life in surgery because the healthcare system valued money over humanity. He wrote about change, real change, starting with himself. Are you sure? Sarah asked after reading it. This will blow up your life. Good, it needs blowing up. He hit post at 5:23 a.m. Within 15 minutes, the story was everywhere. News outlets picked it up. The hashtag #Justice for Sarah began trending. People shared their own stories of medical debt, of family secrets, of the crushing weight of poverty in a world of plenty. Donations poured into the hospital for Emma's care. Thousands of dollars from strangers who saw themselves in Sarah's struggle. Lucas's phone exploded with calls. He ignored most of them. But when Richard Pemberton called, he answered. "You're insane," Richard said. "Brilliant, but insane. The board is in chaos. Crane is finished. 3 members are calling for his resignation. The freeze will be lifted by noon." "Good. Lucas, you just made yourself vulnerable. There will be lawsuits, investigations, your reputation. My reputation was built on my mother's lies and my father's cruelty. I'm fine with tearing it down." At 6:47 a.m., Dr. Chen emerged again. This time, he was smiling. The surgery was successful. Sarah collapsed against Lucas. He caught her, held her while she sobbed. Emma will need intensive care for several days, then a long recovery. But her heart is strong now. She's going to make it. They were escorted to the ICU. Emma lay in a nest of wires and tubes, her small chest rising and falling with mechanical precision. But her eyes fluttered open when Sarah touched her hand. "Mommy," she whispered through the oxygen mask. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." Emma's gaze shifted to Lucas. "Uncle Lucas." "Right here too, sweetheart." A smile, small and weak, crossed Emma's lips. Then she drifted back to sleep. Sarah stood beside the bed, holding her daughter's hand with her bandaged one. And Lucas stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder. For 3 hours, they stayed like that. Just being. Just grateful. Then a nurse appeared at the ICU entrance. "Excuse me. There's a man here. He says he needs to speak with you both. He has papers." Lucas turned. Through the glass partition, he could see a man in an expensive suit, leather briefcase in hand. The man held up a document for them to see through the glass. Emergency custody petition. Thomas Sullivan v. Sarah Bennett. The man mouthed, "Court order, today, 2 p.m. Sarah's knees buckled. "Emma just got out of surgery. They can't." "They can," Lucas said grimly. "Derek's brother. Moving fast before Emma recovers. Before you can fight properly." The lawyer outside tapped his watch. 2 p.m. 6 hours away. "What do we do?" Sarah whispered. Lucas looked at Emma, so small and fragile in the hospital bed. Then at Sarah, exhausted and terrified. Then at his phone, still blowing up with messages of support from thousands of strangers. "We fight," he said. "But first, we need the one thing that might actually help." "What?" "The truth, all of it." He picked up Victoria's letter, the one Sarah had never opened, the one he'd carried in his jacket pocket through the whole nightmarish night. "We need to know what she said, why she really did what she did. Because if Thomas Sullivan is coming for Emma, we need every weapon we have." He held the envelope out to Sarah. Her hand shook as she reached for it. Before she could take it, Henry Morrison burst through the ICU doors, his face ashen. "Turn on the news," he gasped. "Right now." Lucas pulled out his phone, found a news stream. The headline made his blood run cold. "Breaking: Margaret Caldwell claims Hartwell fortune built on fraud. Evidence of falsified death certificate, hidden accounts, and murder." Margaret's face filled the screen. She was in a television studio, tears streaming down her face in a performance worthy of an Oscar. "Maxwell Hartwell didn't die of natural causes," she said to the camera. "He was murdered. And I have proof. Proof that will destroy everything the Hartwell family has built. and proof that Sarah Bennett has no right to a single dollar of that blood money. Lucas watched Margaret's performance on the tiny phone screen. She sat in a television studio, makeup perfect, tears precisely timed. Maxwell Hartwell was gambling away his company, millions in debt, when he threatened to expose certain relationships to protect himself. Someone decided he was more valuable dead than alive. Margaret's voice trembled. I have bank records, encrypted files, proof that his death was orchestrated. The interviewer leaned forward. You're saying Victoria Hartwell murdered her husband. I'm saying follow the money. Maxwell died. And suddenly all his debts disappeared. Convenient, isn't it? Sarah gripped Lucas's arm. Is she lying? I don't know. Lucas felt the world tilting. My father's death was ruled a heart attack. Natural causes. Henry's face was gray. Sir, Maxwell's death was investigated. Very quietly. The coroner found irregularities, but couldn't prove foul play. The file was sealed. By whom? Your mother. She paid a substantial sum to make certain questions go away. The news segment ended with Margaret's final shot. And now Victoria's illegitimate daughter wants to claim a fortune built on lies and possibly murder. Is that justice? I've filed a formal complaint with the DA's office. Let them decide. Lucas's phone rang immediately. Richard Pemberton. Tell me she's lying, Lucas said. I'm looking at Maxwell's sealed autopsy report right now. Someone just leaked it to me. Anonymous source. Richard's voice shook. There were traces of digitalis in his system, enough to trigger a heart attack in someone with his condition. But it could have been medication error, could have been deliberate. The coroner couldn't determine conclusively. Did my mother? I don't know, but Margaret Caldwell's accusations just made this a criminal matter. The DA is opening an investigation, and Lucas... Richard paused. If there's even a hint of impropriety in how Maxwell died, the entire estate could be frozen for years. Sarah's inheritance, Emma's medical care, everything. Sarah was already moving. The custody hearing is in 6 hours. They'll use this. They'll say Emma shouldn't be raised by a family connected to possible murder. They'll crucify us. Lucas agreed. He looked at Emma, still sleeping peacefully in her hospital bed. We need ammunition. Real ammunition. Henry, that video of Margaret, can you get it to the medias now? Already done, sir. Sent it to 3 news outlets 5 minutes ago. Good. Sarah, we need to open that letter from my mother. Whatever's in it, we need to know. Sarah's hands shook as she finally broke the seal on Victoria's envelope. The letter inside was dated 3 days before Victoria's death. The handwriting was shaky, but clear. She read aloud, her voice breaking. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I owe you more apologies than one letter can hold. I gave you away because I was weak. I let Catherine die because I was afraid. I loved my son, but I never stopped loving you. Every birthday, every Christmas, I wondered who you'd become. Maxwell threatened to destroy everything if I contacted you. He threatened to take Lucas from me, to bankrupt the family, to ensure you and Catherine never saw a penny of support. I chose to protect Lucas, my visible child, over you, my hidden one. I will never forgive myself. By now you know about the inheritance. Take it, use it. Build the life I stole from you. And please, if you can find it in your heart, look after Lucas. He doesn't know how cruel this world can be. He doesn't know what it costs to survive. I failed you as a mother. But I'm trying, in this last act, to give you what you deserve. Freedom, security, choice. I loved you from the moment you were born. I love you still. I'm sorry isn't enough. But it's all I have left to give. Victoria. Sarah folded the letter with shaking hands. She knew Maxwell was a monster. She knew, and she chose him anyway. She chose survival, Lucas said quietly. Just like you've been doing your whole life. A commotion erupted in the hallway. Raised voices, security guards shouting. Then Derek Sullivan burst through the ICU doors, 2 police officers behind him. That's my daughter. He pointed at Emma. She's being held against my will. Sarah stepped in front of Emma's bed. You don't have custody. You're wanted in Pennsylvania. Warrant was quashed this morning. My lawyer handled it. Derek smiled. And I've been granted temporary visitation rights pending the hearing. Court order. He shoved papers at the nearest nurse. The officers looked uncomfortable but nodded. Ma'am, the order is valid. He has a right to see the child? She just had open heart surgery. 10 minutes, supervised. Those are the terms. Sarah looked at Lucas, desperate. He stepped forward. You can see her through the glass. That's supervision enough. Derek's face darkened. I want to see my daughter up close. Your daughter who you abandoned, who you traumatized, who screams when she sees you. Lucas moved between Derek and the bed. You'll see her from the hallway. You can't try me. For a moment, violence crackled in the air. Then Derek backed down, but his smile was poison. Fine. But at 2 p.m., we'll be in court, and I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of family you really are. Murderers and liars. He left, but the damage was done. Emma had woken during the confrontation. She was crying silently, her monitors beeping in distress. Sarah climbed into the hospital bed, careful of the wires, and held her daughter. It's okay, baby. He can't hurt you. I won't let him. But her eyes said she didn't believe her own words. The emergency custody hearing convened at 2 p.m. in a gray courtroom that smelled of old wood and desperation. Judge Mary Richardson presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for theatrics. On one side, Sarah Bennett, Lucas Hartwell, and their attorney, a woman named Jennifer Martinez, whom Lucas had hired that morning for a 6-figure retainer. On the other side, Thomas Sullivan, his attorney, Jonathan Pierce, and to everyone's shock, Derek Sullivan, released from custody. Thomas Sullivan looked nothing like his brother. Polished, professional, with kind eyes that seemed genuine. He stood and addressed the court. Your Honor, I'm here because I care about my niece's welfare. My brother made terrible mistakes. I'm not defending him. But that child needs stability. She needs family that can provide for her without scandal, without chaos. He gestured to Lucas and Sarah. These people are currently embroiled in a potential murder investigation. Is that the environment for a sick child? Jennifer Martinez stood. Mr. Sullivan's concern seems convenient, given he's never met Emma, never sent a birthday card, never paid a medical bill. Where was this family devotion 3 years ago when Sarah was raising Emma alone? I didn't know where Emma was. Thomas replied smoothly. Sarah hid her illegally to protect her from a violent father. Alleged violence, never proven. Sarah shot to her feet. I watched Derek push my sister down the stairs. I held Rachel while she died. The judge banged her gavel. Ms. Bennett, sit down. Jonathan Pierce, Thomas's lawyer, played his trump card. Your Honor, we have evidence that Ms. Bennett has been living in poverty, unable to provide basic care. Emma's medical condition has deteriorated under her watch. Meanwhile, Mr. Thomas Sullivan has a stable home, a six-figure income, and a family equipped to handle a special needs child. Ms. Bennett has been working 3 jobs to keep her daughter alive. Jennifer shot back. And now she has family support. Lucas Hartwell has committed to covering all of Emma's medical expenses. The same Lucas Hartwell whose mother may have committed murder, whose estate is under investigation. Pierce smiled. We question his ability to follow through on those promises. Lucas stood. Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence. Proceed. Lucas nodded to Henry, who was sitting in the gallery. Henry approached with his tablet and a USB drive. This is security footage from the Hartwell estate. It shows Margaret Caldwell, the woman making accusations against my family, deliberately destroying property and framing Sarah Bennett. It also shows her threatening Emma's life to keep Sarah quiet. The video played. The courtroom watched in silence as Margaret's cruelty unfolded on screen. Pierce tried to recover. That's irrelevant to custody. It's completely relevant, Jennifer interrupted. It shows Sarah was being terrorized by someone in a position of power. It shows why she was afraid to seek help. It shows she was protecting her daughter under impossible circumstances. Thomas Sullivan shifted uncomfortably. Derek, beside him, whispered something that made Thomas's jaw tighten. Your Honor, Thomas said, standing again. I'd like to request a brief recess. Denied. Say what you need to say. Thomas looked at Derek, then at Emma's empty chair. Sarah had refused to bring her from the hospital. His face underwent a transformation. I need to be honest with the court. He turned to Sarah. I'm sorry. I came here because Derek convinced me you were an unfit mother, that Emma was in danger. He showed me court documents, photographs. He stopped. They were doctored. I had my investigator verify them this morning. They're fake. The courtroom erupted. Derek lunged at his brother. You son of a bailiffs restrained him. Judge Richardson's gavel cracked like thunder. Mr. Derek Sullivan, you're in contempt. Remove him. As Derek was dragged out, still shouting, Thomas continued, I don't want custody. I never did. I wanted to help my niece. But I was lied to, manipulated. He looked at Sarah. Emma belongs with you. Anyone can see that. I'd like to withdraw my petition and offer my support instead. Financial support, if you'll accept it. Not to replace you, just to help. Sarah stared at him, searching for deception, finding only regret. Why should I trust you? Because I lost someone too. Thomas's voice cracked. My wife died of cancer 5 years ago. She was everything to me. And our kids, they needed me to show up, to be present, not perfect, just present. He glanced at where Derek had been sitting. My brother took everything that was good in our family and destroyed it. I won't let him destroy Emma too. The judge studied Thomas for a long moment. Then she turned to Sarah. Ms. Bennett, what do you want? Sarah stood, her bandaged hand pressed against her stomach. I want my daughter to grow up safe. I want her to have the medical care she needs. I want her to know she's loved, not fought over like property. She looked at Thomas. If you want to be part of her life, you can be. But on my terms, and Lucas's, we're her family. We decide. Agreed, Thomas said immediately. Judge Richardson made her ruling. Custody remains with Sarah Bennett. Derek Sullivan is prohibited from any contact with a minor child. Restraining order granted. Mr. Thomas Sullivan may petition for supervised visitation in 6 months, if both parties agree. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Outside the courtroom, Thomas approached Sarah and Lucas. I'm sorry. Truly. Derek showed me evidence that you were neglecting Emma, that she was in danger. I should have investigated more thoroughly. You should have, Lucas agreed coldly. I know, but I'm here now. And I meant what I said. I want to help. No strings, no custody battles, just an uncle who shows up. Sarah considered. You can visit Emma once a month. Supervised. We'll see how it goes. Thank you. Thomas pulled out a checkbook. The hospital bill? Whatever it is. I'll cover half. Consider it back payment for 3 years of Emma's life that I missed. Before Sarah could respond, Lucas's phone rang. Richard Pemberton. The DA reviewed Margaret's evidence. Richard said without preamble, it's circumstantial at best, falsified at worst. They're dropping the investigation into Maxwell's death. But Lucas, they're opening one into Margaret instead. For fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. The video sealed it. Lucas closed his eyes. Thank God. There's more. David Crane resigned from the board. The account freeze is lifted. The estate is yours again, yours and Sarah's. When Lucas hung up, he turned to Sarah. It's over. The money's released. Margaret's finished. Derek's restrained. He paused. We won. But Sarah wasn't smiling. She was staring at her phone. Emma's awake, she said. She's asking for us. They ran. Emma woke up 3 days after surgery. Groggy, but alive. Her first words were, Mommy and Uncle Lucas, and when can I go home? Home became a question with a complicated answer. Sarah couldn't go back to that servant's room. Lucas wouldn't allow it. But she also couldn't simply move into the mansion as if nothing had happened. They compromised. Sarah and Emma took the guest house, a separate cottage on the estate grounds, with 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, and windows that let in actual sunlight. Lucas paid for it to be renovated to Sarah's specifications. She picked every paint color, every piece of furniture. It's too much, she'd protested. It's too little. Lucas had replied. But it's a start. Emma came home from the hospital 2 weeks later. The first night in the guest house, she couldn't sleep. Sarah found her standing at the window, staring at the main house. What's wrong, baby? Is the bad lady still there? No, she's gone. She can't hurt us anymore. And the scary man? He can't come here. The police won't let him. Emma climbed into Sarah's lap. Uncle Lucas lives in the big house. Yes. Is he nice now? Sarah smiled through tears. Yes, sweetheart. He's nice now. The first official act Lucas took as sole heir once Sarah's share was confirmed through DNA tests and legal documentation was to fire David Crane and 3 other board members who'd participated in the account freeze. He replaced them with people who actually cared about workers' rights. The second act was to triple the minimum wage for all Hartwell estate employees. Full health insurance, retirement benefits, paid family leave. The third act was to open Victoria Hartwell's sealed office, the room that had been locked for 15 years. Inside, they found more letters to Sarah. hundreds of them. A lifetime of words that were never sent. Photos of Sarah at different ages, taken from a distance. Victoria had been watching, always watching, never reaching out. Sarah burned them all in the fireplace, Lucas standing beside her. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Burning them, no. She had 15 years to tell me the truth." She chose silence. Sarah watched the pages curl and blacken. I'm not interested in her guilt anymore, just in moving forward. But she kept one thing, a photograph of Victoria holding infant Sarah in the hospital. Both of them looking at each other with expressions of pure love. Before the lies, before the money, just a mother and daughter. Sarah framed it and put it in Emma's room. "Your grandmother," she told Emma. "She made mistakes, but she loved me. In her way." 3 weeks after Emma came home, Sarah enrolled in online courses to finish her pre-med degree. Lucas hired a tutor to help her catch up on 6 years of missed education. "You don't have to work anymore," he'd said. "I want to. I want to be a doctor. For kids like Emma. Kids whose parents can't afford care. Then I'll help." Lucas threw himself into the newly established Victoria and Catherine Foundation. $50 million of initial funding dedicated to helping single parents with medical debt. Sarah was named president. Lucas was vice president. Henry Morrison was made chief advisor. The foundation's first grant went to Mrs. Patterson, the maid, who'd helped Emma that terrible night. Her son needed surgery they couldn't afford. The foundation covered it completely. Word spread. Applications flooded in, hundreds. Then thousands of families desperate for help. Sarah reviewed each one personally. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she just sat and stared at the names, remembering when her own name could have been on such a list. Margaret Caldwell was sentenced to 4 years in prison for fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. Derek Sullivan was extradited to Pennsylvania to face charges for Rachel's murder. New evidence had emerged, including testimony from neighbors who'd witnessed the abuse. Thomas Sullivan visited Emma once a month, exactly as promised. He brought his own children, 2 boys, ages 8 and 10. At first, Emma hid behind Sarah, but slowly, she warmed to them. They were gentle with her, patient. "Thank you for giving me a chance," Thomas told Sarah after the 3rd visit. "Thank you for taking it seriously," Sarah replied. By autumn, the main estate had been transformed. The basement was sealed permanently. The servants' quarters were renovated into proper apartments with living wages. The oppressive silence of the house gave way to something that almost resembled warmth. Lucas sold his father's office furnishings and replaced them with comfortable chairs and family photos. He put up pictures of Victoria and Catherine as young women sisters in everything but name, and pictures of Sarah and Emma, his family, 3 months after that terrible night. Thanksgiving arrived. The dining room had been rearranged. Instead of the formal setup with Lucas at the head of a 20-foot table, they'd brought in a smaller table. Round, no head, no hierarchy. Sarah, Emma, Lucas, Henry, and Thomas, with his 2 sons, gathered around it. Dr. Warner joined them, as did Jennifer Martinez, the lawyer who'd fought for Sarah's custody, and Mrs. Patterson with her son, who was recovering well from his surgery. Lucas stood to offer a toast. "A year ago, I sat in this house alone, surrounded by things, empty things. I thought I had everything." He looked around the table. "I was wrong. I had nothing. Not really. He raised his glass. Now I have a sister who teaches me what strength really means. A niece who shows me joy. Friends who showed me loyalty when I didn't deserve it. And a second chance to be better than the men who came before me. To second chances, Henry added. To family, Sarah said. She looked at Emma. What are you thankful for? Baby, Emma thought seriously. I'm thankful Mommy doesn't cry at night anymore, and that Uncle Lucas buys me books, and that my heart doesn't hurt. She paused. And for mashed potatoes. Everyone laughed. The sound filled the room genuine, unforced laughter that the house had never heard after dinner. Sarah and Lucas walked out to the garden, to the spot where he'd found her eating spoiled food in the rain. Someone had placed a bench there. A plaque read, "Where everything changed." Henry's idea, Lucas said. It's perfect. Sarah sat down. Lucas joined her. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Staying here, taking the inheritance, you could have walked away, started fresh somewhere else. I thought about it. Sarah looked up at the house that had been her prison, then her salvation. But Emma needs stability. And you? You needed family. Real family. I did. Lucas paused. Do you think Victoria would be proud of what we've become? I don't know. I don't think about her much anymore. Sarah's voice was soft. But Catherine would be proud. She'd be proud that I didn't give up, that Emma survived, that we built something good from all that pain. Then that's enough. They sat in comfortable silence, watching lights flicker on in the guest house where Emma was being read a bedtime story by Mrs. Patterson. I keep thinking about all the Emmas out there. Sarah said, the kids who won't make it because their aunts aren't secretly rich, because they don't have an uncle who wakes up in time. That's why we have the foundation. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. No, Lucas agreed. But it's something. And something is better than the nothing I was doing before. Sarah stood, offered Lucas her hand, the one that had been cut, now healed except for a thin scar across her palm. He took it, together. They walked back toward the house, not the grand entrance, the side door, the one that led to the kitchen where Henry was already making hot chocolate for Emma. Inside, Emma's laughter rang out. Thomas's boys were teaching her a card game. Dr. Warner was telling stories from medical school. This was the new normal, imperfect, healing, real. Sarah squeezed Lucas's hand once, before letting go. Welcome home, she said, and for the first time in his life. Lucas understood what that word really meant. Sarah's story isn't unique. Right now, someone is working 3 jobs and still can't afford their child's medication. Someone is being treated as invisible by people who should see their humanity. Someone is one emergency away from losing everything. This story asks us uncomfortable questions. How do we treat the people who serve us? Do we know their names, their struggles? Have we ever looked past our own privilege to see the person behind the uniform? Lucas had wealth but lived in poverty of the soul until he learned to see. Sarah had nothing but possessed the wealth that matters love, resilience, and dignity that no one could take away. The real miracle wasn't the inheritance. It was the moment Lucas chose to listen. The moment he chose to change. The moment Sarah chose to forgive. Not for him, but for herself. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Tell us, have you ever been invisible to someone who should have seen you, or have you been the Lucas who woke up and realized you'd been blind? Share this story with someone who needs to hear that second chances exist, that families who shows up, that truth and love always win in the end. Your story matters too. We're listening.